It was a warm summer evening, and I was kicking a soccer ball around at a park with my 3 friends, Sam, Henry, and Dan. As we were kicking the ball around, Henry asked all of us if we had heard about the abandoned factory downtown. We all answered with yes, and Henry proceeded to tell us that he wanted to sneak inside of it with all of us tonight. We all exchanged glances at one another and agreed on the idea. We continued to kick the soccer ball around while discussing a foolproof plan of getting inside and out of the factory. The plan was to park at an inconspicuous location that was at a distance but not too far from the factory. Once we reached that location, we would grab our backpacks and casually walk toward the factory without drawing attention towards us. Once we were close to the factory and out of public view, we would take the black outfits, hats, and gloves we had in our backpacks out and put them on. We would then stash our previous outfits in our backpacks. We would continue toward the factory and find a low-key entrance point. We would continue through that entrance point and then exit through that point when we were done. Once outside, we would put our other clothes back on and continue to the car without looking suspicious. We would have 2 people with BB guns, and everyone would have a pocket knife for self-defense. In my head, this plan seemed perfect. I was excited to finally be doing something that would get my adrenaline pumping. After we all agreed that this plan was perfect, Henry said that he would pick everyone up and have us at the parking location by 11:30 p.m. Everything was now set, so we left the park. I ate dinner and then packed my bag with the black items we were going to be wearing. I then stuffed my pocket knife into the bag and put my phone on charge because that was my light source. Henry texted in the group chat that he was picking me up first at 10:45, then Dan, then Sam. It was 9:30 at this point, and since I was packed and had a full stomach, I decided to watch YouTube until Henry arrived. When it came to be 10:40, I sat outside of my house in anticipation for Henry. Henry arrived at 10:45 on the dot, and I hopped in the passenger seat of his car. We went and got Dan and Sam, and now we were ready to execute our plan. We made it to Taco Bell at 11:32, which was the location we quickly decided on parking at before passing it. We all got out of the car and put our backpacks on. We started walking toward the factory, which was about 3 blocks away from Taco Bell. The roads weren't very busy because in this section of downtown, there weren't many places to hang out or go to. We didn't pass anyone while walking, and the street had street lights, so it was a very calming walk. I'd say only about 7 cars or so passed us on the 10-minute walk. I don't think those 7 cars that passed took an interest in what we were doing, so we were now right in front of the factory, ready to go inside. The factory took up the whole block and looked horrific from the outside. The stone walls that were facing the front were all scraped up and had a little bit of graffiti on them. The front door was a board that had been screwed on by the looks of it. There were 3 huge signs posted on the front of the building that read, "Do not enter, violators will be prosecuted." That was typical for abandoned buildings to have posted, but what was underneath those words was a bit intimidating. Underneath the initial warning, it read, "This is serious. Prison sentencing is guaranteed if you do not comply." Sam told us not to worry about the warnings because they are just to scare off those who want to graffiti the building. At the bottom right corner of the front of the building, there was a board that was barely noticeable, covering a large window or doorway, or something of that matter, because it was in a strange spot. Dan was the first to notice it, and he said we should try to get in through it before another car passes us. We all quickly jogged to the spot. It was very creepy looking up close. The building looked so old, and the board looked like it had gone through war. Sam then told us to put our black outfits on, and we all did. Dan was the one who made first contact with the board. He attempted to grab it, and when he did, he simply pulled it towards himself, and it came right off where it was. It revealed a doorway with stairs that led into darkness. We all looked at each other like we had hit the jackpot. Dan offered to go first, so he reached in his bag and pulled out a large flashlight, and we all grabbed our flashlights as well. Dan descended down the stairs. Sam followed behind Dan, then me, and then Henry. We all made it down the stairs, and we were now officially inside the factory. We then scanned the area we were in and assumed we were all in a storage room of some sort. There were a few empty boxes, and other than that, the room was empty. Sam said to all of us that we should get our BB guns and our knives out before we leave the room. We all agreed, and Dan and I got our pocket knives out and stuffed them in our pockets. Henry and Sam did the same, but also took out their BB guns, since they were the two who were designated to have one. Looking back on it, we should have had our weapons on hand before entering the building. Henry and Sam proceeded to the door leading out of the storage room with their guns in hand. Dan and I followed behind them with our knives easily accessible. Sam reached for the door and it turned. The door was unlocked and he threw it open. The door was open and we slowly crept out while using our flashlights to scan our surroundings. The area we were now in seemed large. There were no walls ahead that were visible, with the light illuminated from our flashlights. We did see an object of some sort ahead, though. We cautiously moved toward it, and we saw that it extended and went across as far as we could see. After closer examination, we figured out it was a conveyor belt. We followed the conveyor belt to the end, where we found an abundance of empty boxes and tape. Dan suggested that this place may have been a packing company in the past. We all thought that was a reasonable explanation, so we accepted it. We continued to search the large room we were in, and concluded that there was nothing else in the area that was worth noting. We looked into some other rooms as well, and they only had boxes and tape. We were in there for about 30 minutes by this point, and it was beginning to get boring. Then we found a door in the left side corner of the factory, which made it the exact opposite point compared to where we entered from. The door to this room was heavily locked, with at least 3 different locking mechanisms. Sam then said, "It looks like there's no chance of getting in here. This must be where classified government files are hidden." After saying this, he body-checked the door to assure that this door was not being opened anytime soon. But that wasn't the case. The door fell over without much hesitation after Sam made contact with it. The sound it made was very loud, but we were all in shock and stood still for a few seconds. Henry broke the silence that followed after the door fell and said, "Well, boys, let's see what's in here." We all flashed our flashlights into the room and immediately saw a bulletin board covering the wall we were facing. We were all very intrigued by the board, so we all went up to it and started examining it without scanning the rest of the room. Henry said, "Guys, there are working shifts written on here, and the schedule is up to date with the present day." This was extremely odd. I was feeling uneasy, most likely because it smelled horrible in there. Sam then said, "Jesus Christ, according to this flyer, this is the Corpse Packaging Company." Dan then interjected and said, "Guys, this place wasn't too hard to get into. This is probably a prank left here by the people who snuck in here before us." We all told Dan he was most likely right. Then I said, "Why haven't we scanned the rest of the room?" Then we all turned to our right with our flashlights, and there, I saw the most horrific thing I have ever laid my eyes on. 10 dead human bodies were hanging from the ceiling. It didn't take long for Henry to say, "We need to leave." Henry took off running out of the room, and we followed. We made it about 10 steps out of that room, then we all froze because we heard a police siren coming from just outside. Then a police officer yelled from across the factory. The officer said, "This is the police. If there's anyone in here, Stop where you are and put your hands up. I was the last person out of the room, so I saw that there was a door that we entered previously right next to me. I said, "Guys, in here." I led everyone behind the door of the room that was next to me, and we turned our flashlights off. As we were hiding there, we heard police officers approaching. One officer yelled, "Make a noise if you are in here." Another officer then said, "Oh God, the door to the workroom isn't in place." Another officer then said, "You're kidding." Then the first officer said, "This is bad, really bad." Right after he said that, a walkie-talkie began relaying a message, and it said, "Hey, we have 3 suspects running south down Wallace Street, about a block from the factory. We think they might have been the ones who were in the CPC." A police officer in the factory then said, "Let's go," and we heard them run toward the entrance point. It was now silent, and we waited about 20 seconds until someone made a sound. It was Dan. He said, "Henry, you should have put the damn wood back where it was when we came in." Sam then said, "It's not the time for that. We need to leave." Sam turned his flashlight on and exited the room, and we all followed. We made our way to the exit of the building. Sam went first up the stairs that we came in from. He poked his head out to scan the surroundings. He then turned back to us and said, "The coast is clear." Sam went up the rest of the stairs and out of the factory, and we all followed. Once we were all out, I said to everyone, "The person on the walkie-talkie said the suspects were moving south and we were parked north from here, so we should be fine." Dan then said, "We should speed walk back, but not too fast to look suspicious." Sam then said, "We should put our other clothes back on." And we did immediately after he said that. We then executed Dan's speed walking plan, and it was a quick walk back to Henry's car. Once we reached Henry's car, we quickly got inside and left the parking lot without hesitation. Henry said that he was taking everyone home, and no one said anything. Sam told everyone during the car ride back that we can't tell anyone about this, and we all acknowledged the importance of that. Dan then said, "We should probably just not talk about this. We don't need to create any trouble for ourselves." We all understood what he meant, and the rest of that car ride was silent. I was the last person to be dropped off, and right as I was getting out, Henry said, "I'm sorry for all of this." I then said, "Don't be sorry. Just, let's forget about it." He said, "Okay." And I said, "Thanks for the ride." He said, "Any time." I shut the door and watched him drive off. I got inside and my parents were asleep, so I was left alone in my thoughts. I couldn't get the image of those bodies out of my mind. What kind of industry does things like that? I shouldn't dwell on it. I needed to forget about it. I just hope that I, or anyone I know, ends up as one of those dead bodies in that factory.